Gray Octopussy. Hey y'all, it's Grey Octopussy and I'm back with more UFOs. So, as you know, I did a BUGA sphere observation on the round metallic ball that was flying around in Colombia. So, this is part 2 of the BUGA sphere observation. And I'm saying, I'm going to show you the observation, different things people said about it. And at the end, I'm going to give you my opinion and what I feel about it at the very end. So stay tuned for that. So without further ado, let's roll it.
Well, the first thing seems to be a video shared around social media, showed a glowing sphere over BUGA, March 26th.
Okay.
Then it got picked up more widely. Unidentifiedphenomena.com reported May 6th, same time as Massan's report, basically.
And there's more than one video, I heard.
Right. The first one, apparently from someone named Maria, showed the sphere moving in a way that didn't look like a balloon or drone. People described it as intelligent movement.
Intelligent movement. That's the key phrase, isn't it? Not just drifting.
Exactly. That suggestion of intent is what grabbed people. Then a second video surfaces, shows the sphere coming down, like a controlled descent, near someone who is apparently looking for buried treasure, using electromagnetic gear.
Wait, treasure hunting? With electromagnetic equipment?
I know, right? And this leads to the sphere being picked up by this Daniel Velez.
And he owns a company that makes that kind of equipment.
Germany, the company's called. Makes electromagnetic detectors. It's quite the coincidence.
You couldn't write it. It's bizarre.
It adds this whole other layer, doesn't it? And the really big thing here, compared to most UAP sightings, is the claim of physical recovery.
Right. Usually it's just lights, photos, radar maybe, an actual object.
That's incredibly rare in UFO history, a potential tangible artifact.
A game changer, potentially.
So I don't agree, with what they just said right there, how, evidence, throughout the UFO lore, that's, through time, having the physical evidence, it's very rare. And I object to that because there's been plenty of physical evidence, but it's just been suppressed by our government and military and different things like that, right? So as far as the silver balls and the metallic spheres, there's been plenty of those throughout the years.
What are we actually seeing there?
Okay, so the image is basically a cutaway view, a cross-section of a sphere.
Right.
And right in the middle, there's a core, a nucleus, made of these little spheres, microspheres, all equally spaced.
Equally spaced. Interesting.
Now, around that core, you see these fields shown in blue, orange, red, electromagnetic fields shaped like a torus.
A torus, like a donut.
Exactly like a donut shape. And that feminist letter points out 3 things: that central symmetry, the equal spacing of the microspheres, and the torus shape itself.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Central symmetry, what's the takeaway there?
Well, symmetry like that, it often suggests it wasn't accidental. It points towards, engineering.
Right, nature tends to be a bit messier.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In engineering, especially with electromagnetics, symmetry is often about stability, balance, efficiency, even energy distribution. It feels designed.
What about the equal spacing of those little spheres inside? Resonance or inertial balance? What does that mean?
Okay, think resonance first. Imagine tapping a tuning fork. It rings at a specific frequency, right?
Yeah.
Resonance is when something vibrates strongly at its natural frequency. These equally spaced microspheres might be tuned, like tiny tuning forks, to resonate together.
And what did that achieve?
Well, potentially it could be a way to amplify energy very efficiently. Maybe generate the power the sphere needs or harness energy from somewhere. It's a clue to a possible power source.
Like tiny antennas amplifying energy?
Could be something like that. Or think inertial balance, like balancing a tire on a car.
Okay.
If the weight inside the sphere is perfectly balanced, it can move smoothly, rotate without wobbling. That fits with the reports of a controlled descent, doesn't it?
Ah, right. Stability in motion.
Yeah.
So designed for smooth movement.
That's the idea. Intentional design again.
Okay, symmetry implies engineering. Equal spacing suggests maybe energy generation or stable movement. Now, the torus, that donut of electromagnetic fields, why is that shape interesting?
The torus shape pops up a lot in physics, actually, especially with magnetic fields. Think of tokamaks, those fusion reactors.
Right, the big donut-shaped ones.
Or even planetary magnetic fields. They often have this kind of closed-loop toroidal structure. In physics, it often signifies a contained system, containing energy, directing it.
So another clue about power and control.
Very likely. And the simulation uses different colors, blue, orange, red.
What do they mean?
Probably different strengths of the field, or maybe different aspects of the electromagnetic energy within that torus shape. The idea is the microspheres inside are working together to create and hold this stable field.
Now, you hear torus is mentioned in UFO circles sometimes, connected to, like, wilder ideas, anti-gravity, propulsion.
Yeah, it definitely has that association in the more speculative literature. The torus comes up in theories about advanced propulsion, bending space, anti-gravity.
But how much of that is actual science?
Well, that's the key distinction. The torus shape itself is scientifically valid in electromagnetism for containing fields. The anti-gravity stuff, that's highly theoretical, no real proof.
Okay.
But seeing that shape in the simulation definitely feeds into those more out-there ideas for people interested in UAPs.
So a real scientific shape that also carries this, like, symbolic baggage in the UFO world.
Got it.
Okay, moving on from the simulation, the engravings. The actual sphere supposedly has markings.
Yes. A user at TruthPollex shared pictures. Looks like a circular pattern, some geometric shapes, maybe circuit-like lines, and some kind of script.
A script? Like writing?
Looks like it. Unusual symbols. Could be another clue, maybe origin or purpose.
Has anyone tried to, like, decipher it? I saw something about Grok 3, maybe.
Yeah, there were reports. Apparently, if you mirror the script and rotate it, Grok 3 suggested it says, the space officer.
The space officer? Seriously?
That's the claim. And that immediately made people think of the Searle effect generator, the SEG.
Okay, hang on. The SEG, refresh my memory, that's the free energy thing.
Right. John Searle's idea supposedly converts magnetic energy, magnets spinning on a track, claims it makes more energy than it uses, which violates physics as we know it.
So, controversial is putting it mildly.
Very.
Right.
Widely considered pseudoscience by the mainstream.
So, if the script says the space officer, and that links to the SEG, what does that imply? A reference to Searle? Or something symbolic?
Could be either or neither, really. Maybe a nod to Searle himself, this unconventional inventor figure. Or maybe space officer is just a metaphor for the sphere's function or origin.
But that link to pseudoscience immediately raises red flags, doesn't it? If the engraving points to something debunked.
Exactly. It makes you question the engraving's authenticity, or at least that interpretation. Is it a real clue linked to fringe science, or is it maybe designed to look like a clue? Deliberately misleading.
It casts doubt. Okay, were there other attempts to figure out the script, other interpretations?
There were. Another user at Xochrios shared a handwritten translation into Spanish. Claimed it read, Las alas luminosas o el gran resplandor.
Which means?
The luminous wings, or the great radiance. Much more poetic, descriptive.
Interesting. But maybe less specific. How was that received?
Well, one user at John Blade just replied, BS. So, not universal acceptance there.
Fair enough. But blunt.
And then there was another report about Grok 3 from @Jack69039. Said Grok noted the characters aren't actually a known language.
Not a real language.
No, but they look like alien writing, like the kind you see generated online using Unicode symbols to mimic sci-fi scripts.
Ah, so like something from Decode.fr's alien language generator.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Which strongly suggests the engravings might be modern, made to look alien, rather than being genuinely extraterrestrial communication.
Using AI, they would attempt to decode this strange text, with the result reading, "The origin of birth through union and energy in the cycle of transformation, meeting point of unity, expansion, and consciousness, individual consciousness." Mason's team would then say that they understood this all to be a, quote, message to humanity, encouraging a collective shift in consciousness to help Mother Earth.
Let's loop back to the science then, the electromagnetism part. We talked about the torus shape. How would that actually be generated? You mentioned Maxwell's equations.
Right. Fundamentally, moving electric charges create magnetic fields. If you have charges moving in a loop, like an electric current, you naturally get a magnetic field looping around it. That's the basis of a toroidal field.
Okay.
The simulation implies those microspheres inside are doing something, maybe spinning, maybe having internal currents that generates this overall field.
So if you have these powerful, stable toroidal fields, what could they do Forget anti-gravity for a second. Plausible applications.
Well, electromagnetic propulsion is definitely real. Maglev trains are the obvious example.
Using magnetic fields to lift and push the train.
Right. No wheels, no friction. It's conceivable that the sphere's fields could interact with the Earth's magnetic field or generate their own repulsive attractive forces for movement.
So, propulsion. Could explain the controlled descent.
It's a more scientifically plausible explanation than warping space-time, certainly. Skillful manipulation of electromagnetic forces.
Okay, that feels like a possibility. Now, the X community reactions to the simulation, always a mixed bag, right? What stood out?
Oh, definitely diverse. You had at Milcott Games just say it's an energy resonator. Straightforward agreement with that idea.
Buying into the resonance hypothesis.
Yeah. But then others were more skeptical about the simulation matching reality.
How so?
At Ether Days, who mentioned having X-ray CT experience, looked at earlier images of the physical sphere and said the stuff inside didn't look perfectly centered.
So challenging that perfect central symmetry from the simulation.
Exactly. A reminder that simulations are idealized. The real object might be different, messier.
Good point. What about just basic questions, like what is it made of?
Right. At Shotdown Mind asked the obvious practical question, has anyone actually tried to test the material? Drill it, cut it, analyze it?
The fundamental stuff you'd want to know.
Absolutely. We need that basic material science.
And I assume there was outright disbelief, too.
Oh, yeah. At Double Air 818 was skeptical about the engravings, suggesting if they weren't perfectly made, it points to a hoax. And at Edward Tauber just flat out said it's obviously fake.
Okay. So the full spectrum. Believers, skeptics, technical critics.
Pretty much sums up the online reaction to these things. Very polarized.
So, pulling back, what are the bigger implications here? What makes the BUGA sphere, potentially important in the grand scheme of UAP studies?
Well, number one is the physical object claim, if true, and if it can be studied. That's huge.
Moving beyond just sightings.
Right. Material analysis, internal structure, measurable properties, that could give actual data, not just stories.
And the simulation, even if the sphere isn't real, it still pushes thinking, right?
Absolutely.
So if you look at those metallic little spheres, those metallic balls, when they did the x-rays on the sphere, those small metallic balls that were in the center of the sphere and the inside bunched up, if you look at them, the shapes match exactly like the symbol on the outside as you see here. Look at the top, look at the sides, how they're a little lower than the top one and so forth. Just look at it. You can see it matches. So there's something about this. There's something functional about this technology. What it does, I don't know. But let's move on, folks. All right, so we've reached the end of this video and the end of the observation, and now it's time for what I feel, right? And I really didn't come to a conclusion to this, Is it alien? Is it from another world? Is it reverse engineered? Military? One thing I can say is definitely some sort of probe, Now, whether it's a probe from another realm, another world, I don't know. Because the outer layer is made out of aluminum, everything it's made out of is pretty much elements from this earth, right? Even though there is one element, I don't think they're identified yet, And the little balls on the inside, the way they match with that symbol on the outside of it, I find that very interesting, So, to me, I know there's beings that come from other worlds and other dimensions and other realms, and they don't need a physical craft. They don't need a spaceship, third density spaceship, And first you got to understand that, my definition of technology is different, Technology can be anything. Technology doesn't have to be something that's physical. You have mental technology, spiritual technology, ethereal technology. There's different kinds of tech. Our bodies are technology, and our bodies, our physical bodies are advanced technology, because then you have our spirits and our emotions and our thoughts, which are also technology, So with that being said, I really can't come to a conclusion to this. You know what I mean? So, I'm just gonna, keep watching, keep observing, and keep showing you UFOs. So, Again, with that being said, this is Gray Octopussy signing off and signing out. Peace.